IF28 work as a bartender in a bar/restaurant. Last night at work, I have a very strange old man come in for a drink. As soon as he sat down, I had a bad feeling about him. He ordered a beer and started talking about his day and whatnot. He said he's from the area, but moved to the state capital back in the 70s or 80s, and that he visits for 1 week every July. Conversation was normal for about 10 minutes. He'd continued by telling me about his family and what it was like growing up here. After the conversation had finished, he pulled out envelopes with stacks of photos in them. My gut was telling me the photos were something bad, but I'd hoped it was just photos from his trips. The first one was an AI-generated photo of a cat on a surfboard, but after that all the other ones were of young women. The photos were all AI-generated, and all the women in the photos he was showing me were celebrities wearing a typical Daisy Duke outfit. I tried to be friendly and told him how crazy it is that the internet can make these photos of celebrities look so real. At one point, he did show me a picture of a real lady that he watches on YouTube, but it was similar to the other photos. She was wearing tiny shorts bent over the engine of her truck. At this point, the cooks were leaving for the night, and I was the only employee left in the building. The owner was in the office working on paperwork. I went back and let him know that I was getting a really weird vibe from the guy, and he agreed, saying the cooks were talking about him and the bartender the night before had talked to him then. He thanked me for letting him know, and I went back to work. He shuffled through his photos again looking for some to show me, but let me know he could show me any because the women were only wearing their panties. I tried to avoid the guy after that, but there were only a few other patrons in the building and they were all sitting at tables. I went to do some cleaning behind the bar and he started talking about the girl from YouTube and how young and pretty she is. He pointed out that she looks like a teenager and that's why he liked her videos so much, but told me she in her 30s. I am a young-looking girl. Most people who don't know me think I'm still 20-21-ish, so this made me extremely uncomfortable. I ignored the comments about her and he started talking about his family again. I was responding with bare minimum responses, just trying to make it to close in 15 minutes. All the patrons had left at this point except him, and I let him know we would be closing very soon and he should start gathering his things. Instead of picking up his photos, he said something about why he moved to the state capital. I was barely listening at this point until he said he was told to leave the city. I didn't say anything or ask about it, but he continued saying the county court had him sent away all those years ago. It just so happened that there's a large prison in the state's capital, and it seemed like more than a coincidence. At this point, I'm about to just tell the owner to kick him out when he starts talking about why he was sent there. It was a story of how he did something breast related to a girl in elementary school. I'm not very good at guessing people's ages, but there's no was this man was in elementary school in the 70s, 80s. He said the girl told the teacher on him even though it didn't happen, but no one believed him, so he got sent away. He said he was resentful towards this girl for many years until he heard she has special needs and isn't mentally capable of making up a lie like that. I was dumbfounded. I couldn't tell if he was saying he did it or if the teacher was the one lying. We were closing in like 2 minutes at this point, so I tried to wrap up his conversation by telling him I hope his trip was nice and to have a safe trip home. He slowly packed his things and I walked around the bar to the tables by the front door to lock it after he left. He walked towards the door slower than I've ever seen anyone walk, and he'd always walk towards me even if I was standing next to a table away from the door. I was terrified at this point, so I called my husband and put my phone in my pocket in case something happened. That moment, the owner turned half the lights off and walked towards me. I politely told the man he has to leave now and again said I hope he has a safe trip. As he opened the door to leave, he turned back around and said, "I'll probably be back in tomorrow to see you. I don't leave town until Sunday. I want to let anyone reading this know it's going to be long, but I hope it's worth the read." Posted some photos I have taken of what I found on my page for people who are interested. Also, if anyone reading this is from my area, they probably know who this man is, but I ask that you do not post his information in the comments. This time, I do not wish for anyone to have information about where I live and possibly where I work. If you decide to do some digging yourself to find out who this man is, please keep it to yourself, and if you are in the area and don't know him, please inform others. Last night I had posted about my experience with a man in the bar I work at. I didn't want my original post to go on forever, so I only said what I thought was pertinent to the story. I'll try to make an abridged version here so you don't have to read everything again and try to only add important details I left out. An old man walks into a bar. He immediately gives off a weird vibe. I'm a young woman and I'm on guard from my gut instinct. He showed me lewd AI-generated photos of young celebrity women and talks about how he's attracted to one specific girl because of how young and pretty she looks. He also talked about his past in the area I live and how he had to move for a breast-related incident that happened between 55 to 45 years ago. I was alone in the bar, except for my male boss in the office. All the patrons had left except him, and I told him we will be closing soon and he needed to leave. He took his sweet time packing up, and when he finally started to leave, he followed me around the dining room. The owner was watching the cameras through all of this and eventually turned some of the lights out and came up to get him to leave. As he was leaving, he stood in the door and told me he will be back tomorrow to see me. That's where the story ended as I went to work today. I then informed my coworkers on what had happened and we casually joked about it. One of the other bartenders had talked to the man the night before he came in. The bartender, M29, said he's a cool dude and just called him a little goofy. I was joking around about carding the man if he came in again, even though he was clearly old enough to drink, just so I could get his name. At that point, my coworker told me his first name. With that information and the fact I knew the city he was currently living in and where he was originally from, I could hopefully find him online. When I got home, I started searching for his first name, followed by assaulting girl, the years I thought it had taken place, and the cities he had lived in. When I'd find something that matched, I'd look up the full name and see the mugshots to match the face. For about an hour I had a match, but it was so much more than I had bargained for. The article with the mugshot I had clicked on led me to discover that back in 1995, he was the prime suspect in the murder of a teenaged girl. Case against him was eventually dropped due to lack of evidence, mishandling of evidence, and his mental state. After a few years, he was released from prison. There were many local news articles about his assaults against young women, but I couldn't read them without paying, so I moved on. While I was looking through the search results, I came across a subreddit post, I later found more, dedicated to this man. Post was from 10 years ago, and reading it I learned he is very well known in the city he resides because of his flamboyant appearance and mode of transportation. Not only that, but the comments were filled with stories very similar to mine. He'd constantly go into local businesses and harass the young women working there to the point of getting banned from many of these places. In his city, people seem to know that if he comes into your business, you need to hide all the female employees. There was one other news article I found that I didn't have to pay for, stating the police had been called on him for harassing a young female employee and threatening to stalk her. It was also stated in the article that he had told her she reminds him of a character in a book where a man stalks and kills her. I believe this happened just before the murder. This and his repeated creepy behavior towards women lead most to believe he was in fact guilty of the murder. Years after he was acquitted, a prisoner had told an investigator that a nameless person had admitted to the murder and took some souvenirs. The nameless person then hid the items on a bike path the old man frequented. Nothing ever came from this, unfortunately. This was all hard to digest. Being face to face with a possible murderer, Hearing all these other young girls experiencing the same things I did, and most of all, seeing how my male coworker saw this man I was so clearly afraid of. Thankfully, the man hadn't come back to see me, and all of my male coworkers, for the most part, took it seriously and made it a point to make sure the women made it safely out of work tonight. I hope I never see this old man again, and if I do, I will be reporting him to the police. What would you have done? Let me know in the comments below.